Hello and welcome to the Alpha Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm joined today by Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success. Today, Sarah is continuing on with her webinar series, but we're always here to answer your questions as well, and you could type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Sarah, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Let's see if I can see your screen.
All right, and you can see this, see my
And there
mouse.
it is. And your mouse, and it's
All
moving.
right, all right, perfect. So yeah, thanks to the intro. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about what we didn't talk about last week, searching and sorting. So Legos, I felt like we're an appropriate picture for this because you just need that one piece in your giant bin and you can't find it. Because Legos don't have a great interface for searching. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about our webinar poll results. We did have a poll up on the forum. It was up there for about a week, a little bit under a week, I think. And we had really good feedback on it. Here's the results. And the top two are building a custom web theme and enhancing user experience with micro interactions. If you don't know what micro interactions are, we will be talking about that on July 6th because it won. A shout out to somebody did ask about using Amazon S3. All of the suggestions that we saw were great. We're not just going to talk about micro interactions. We will go over custom web themes in August. Because I don't know if you can tell from this, July is almost completely planned here. So, but we'll go over build a custom web theme, and we will get to these other things if as quickly as we can. As we move forward. Of course, if we have an Alpha Anywhere release, we would like to talk about those features instead, because that's always a big, huge deal when we release something new. And we will be releasing something new in time for our release overview and as well as a feature deep dive on the 20th. We're going to pick a few new features that are in that release and go over them in a little bit more depth. So keep your mark your calendars for those presentations. I think you guys will find them really valuable. And then as always, DevCon is coming up. So I mentioned August. We've got our stuff planned for August. And then in October, we'll have one or two webinars before the actual DevCon, the week of October 18th to 22nd. There will be no Alpha Anywhere Q&A that week because we will be doing DevCon instead. But if you haven't registered yet, I strongly encourage you to do so now. Tickets are currently the cheapest they're going to be before DevCon. And at the end of the month, prices will go up. So go to www.alphasoftware.com/DevCon2022 to register today. We have an exciting lineup that we're planning, and I think you guys will get a lot out of it. So today we're talking about searching and sorting, filtering and ordering. These are the same thing. And what you can do specifically with a list control to empower your users to find data. So a list control is a control in a UX component. And the list builder has an option to enable something called a search part. And that search part basically is an interface that has all of the logic hooked into it to search the list based on some search criteria. And that search criteria that you can use comes in a variety of interfaces. There's really three main interfaces in Alpha Anywhere that you'll see kind of scattered all over the place. You'll see this in the grid component too, if you're familiar with that. But the three main types of search that we present to you that are very easy to drop in, and we've got genies to generate it for you, and also include a bunch of functionality around it, are searching with individual controls. So a single control maps to a single field in your data. The keyword search, so one search box to search any number of fields in your data. And then something called query by form, which for those of you who've been around with us for a while, you probably know what that is. But query by form is actually a really cool built-in like search language in Alpha Anywhere that you can actually leverage to provide your users with more search flexibility. So they're not just typing in a letter in a keyword search and hoping to find it. There's some cool stuff you can do with query by form. with respect to the list control itself in that list builder on the search part, the three options that we've just saw on the previous slide, all the configuration for doing that is built in. So individual controls, there's a field map that you set up where you can map the list control column to a control in your component. If those controls don't exist, the search part genie will generate them for you. But basically what it is the user interface is one or more controls mapped to one field in the list, and the mapping is generally one-to-one. You can't map multiple controls to the same column, nor can you map the same column to multiple controls. But in terms of like a really basic, like searching a city or a customer name or a phone number, just providing that as a real quick interface. Very easy to create and very easy to use. The other one that I mentioned, keyword, is one control, so like a text box probably, that you can then specify to search multiple fields. So this is a screenshot of that search fields interface where you'd set up all those mappings for a control that you've defined in your search properties. But in that case, it's one UI element to search multiple fields in your list. And that's the same kind of interface you see with like Google search. You have one box, you type it in, it searches through all your data and gives back what it feels is going to be the best match. And that third one, query by form, I think I'd want to spend a little bit of time on this today because some of you may not be familiar with this. So in the search properties, this is the list builder here on the side, and the search part is this tab. If you don't have that in your list, you need to check has search part on the list properties tab first. But the search part style, query by form, which can be used to search one or more fields, also requires a detail view because it uses the detail view controls as the search interface in this case. So when you enter search mode, the detail view is shown, and then you can type in your search criteria in there using the query by form syntax, which is a lot of different things. It supports, the query by form syntax supports using operators like equals, greater than, less than, or not equals here with the exclamation point. But it also has a few other features in it, such as this dot syntax, meaning searching a range. So if you have set up QBF syntax on a name field or a date, people could search for all users with the names between John and Steve using this dot, these two periods between them. Or you could search for two dates. You can search between the 1st of January and the 1st of December with two dots in between. So this syntax here. Continuing on with that, those same two dots can be used to mean everything before this date or everything after this value. There's also a few here for checking if something is blank or null. Important thing about null is that's only going to work on a SQL-backed data source. If you're using DBF, which you can't do in Community Edition, but for those of you running the full version of the IDE, if you want to search for something that's blank, you'll just use it blank. And then there's also this comma syntax where you want to search for something that is A or B or C. So that's the QBF syntax, which you can use in your detail view controls, which are used as the search interface if you've set it up through the search part. But it doesn't stop with just the search part. So I know I've had some questions in recent months about this. You can do a lot with the search part, but there are some limitations, and when you run into those, that's when you need to start thinking about a custom search interface. And the list has some custom search interfaces built into it already. So there's something called the alphabet search, which is a way to quickly filter all of the data based on some criteria. So the default setup is the alphabet, English alphabet, A through Z, and that maps to a field. So in this case, clicking one of these letters, I had set it up to filter on city, and then I took a screenshot without it being filtered. But basically, you could click on P and just show all the cities that start with the letter P, or if you set it up to map to a state field, you could click on a G and show all the results of the state that starts with G. But the alphabet search isn't just the alphabet. It can also be customized with custom buttons, which you could do to set up a range. So maybe you want everything between A and C, or M through O, or whatever division you want to separate that up. So alphabet search is a way to get that custom filtering in pretty quickly. And that's done through list properties. And it's the only one done through list properties. This next one is the advanced list search control, which is a control outside of the list, but is linked to a list. And when you set it up, you specify what list you want to search against, and then you map fields to controls in to display in the interface. And this has a lot of options here. You can do text box. There's the step control can be used for specifying values. And this there's a lot you can do with this configuration here. And what that gives you is this interface here, which it starts with a button that says add a new search field. You add that search field, you can then enter a value in. So this was added code, we had put in VA, and then we picked a filter. And this ... x ... is the symbol for contains. If you want to use something else, I believe you can go in there and change those image mappings. But you can just build this up using and criteria or criteria, and then run the query or clear the search. So this is external to the list. It will filter the list for you, but provides a very dynamic interface for working with that search. Another interface you can add, again, going back to the list properties again, is something called a column actions filter. And what this gives you is a little, for all the columns that you've added it to, a little filter symbol. When you click on that, you can come in here and do like equals, not equals, some sort of search here, contains, not contains. And then select the results you want to show, and then click filter, and then it filters your data for you, which is a quick way to add in some filtering without a full-blown UI if that's something you want to avoid. Another option, this gets into ordering your data, is something called drag to reorder. And I don't know if many of you know about this, but there is a option to turn on drag reordering, which lets you click on a list row and then drag it to another position. So with this one, this would be great for data that you want to let the users manually order. So that order needs to be stored with your data of how it's going to appear in your list. But this is a really nice option to add that kind of interactive ordering piece. So this isn't searching, it's ordering, but we are talking about searching and ordering today. And this is, again, it's a list property that you can set. So when we've gone through those list options, there is more beyond that. We have lots of Action JavaScript to go through that you can use to do searching and sorting, either server side or client side. If the interfaces of if query by form, if you want to provide that, but you don't want to use the detail view, you need to start looking at Action JavaScript. If you want to do something like provide range searching, but you don't want to use the advanced list control because you feel like that might be a bit too much for your users, or maybe it's just overkill for what you need to do, you need to look at Action JavaScript. And with Action JavaScript, there is quite a few options for you. The first one that's going to provide you a lot of control with a really nice setup interface is going to be the filter records in a list control action. And this is separate from the other ones that we're going to look at. It lets you select the fields that you want to use for your search interface and what they're going to search and how that search is going to work. It supports range search, which means that you would indicate two controls of what the min and the max value what contains the min and the max value to check. It includes the option to turn on query by form syntax if you want to provide that to your users. And it includes a bunch of other options that aren't immediately available. You can like force case and sensitive searches if you got issues with people putting spaces in either before or after their text. Maybe they're copying and pasting data from somewhere and it's grabbing extra space. You can trim those off. It also includes sort fields if you want to add a custom sort order, including controls to read the direction from if you want to be able to provide options for that. So this is very powerful. It's worth looking at if you haven't looked at it before. It's been around for a while, so it's pretty solid. So just check that out. And then the rest of the search actions that are available to you are all found inside the list control actions JavaScript action. And I've highlighted a few here that might be of interest to you. There's client-side searching. So if you've got an offline app that needs to work, search needs to work offline, you can look at filtering list client-side. If you have a connection to the internet, filtering the server side is another option for you. And then this third one, which we'll talk a little bit about, but the interface what you would need to add to use this is filtering on the checked rows, select checked rows. So the list has an option to add a checkbox column, and this action lets you say, only show me those records that have been checked. And then on the sorting side of things, you have client-side sort and server-side sort. Do note that these, often with a search action, sort is also available to you when you're setting that up. But if you just want sorting, we've got client-side sorting, which is only going to sort on the client. Perfect if you've got all your data already and you don't need to pull any more. Server-side sort is good for paginated lists where you haven't pulled everything down. And you want to, keep the data on the device at a minimum while you still have a connection. A few things I wanted to call out during this presentation today are some add-ons you can add to your searching that may create a nicer user experience for you. And that first one being search highlighting. So search highlighting is something you can turn on in the list. And what it does is whenever the filter records in a list control action is used, or you do a search using the search part, regardless of the type of search part you've picked, the individual controls, keyword, or query by form, search highlighting will work with that. And what it does is it just highlights the text in the record that matched the search criteria that you submitted, which I find to be very helpful in a busy interface, or even if you're not planning to give that to your users. Perhaps you're confused about why the search is giving you specific results. Turning that on will show you what record, what field had matched. Another add-on that you could consider using is Save Searches. This is used with that advanced list search control. There's an option to turn on saving and loading searches, which are saved per user in the web application repository. And there are a few XBasic and JavaScript methods for working with that. The repository table is configured in your web project properties. But if that's something that you would like to offer your users, consider taking a look at that. It's pretty slick, and it can take for large lists where you want to provide a lot of flexibility around what people can query. If they want to always be looking up the same thing, you can give this to them and they have a way to save that. And then finally, the checkbox select control. This is a picture of it here. This is the configuration for it. If you turn it on in the list properties, it's basically just a column that's a checkbox. And when you check it, it's selected. And then you can use options like select checked rows on the list filtering. And then last but not least, our favorite, JavaScript. And there's a lot of JavaScript to use. So I'm covering a lot today because I wanted to give you guys an overview of what is out there. In terms of the demo, after we get to the end of this section, I'm going to keep it to questions, but I can show you a few things that I put together just to show you how a few of those work. So with JavaScript, with a list, there's two categories of JavaScript you can use with the list control. You can use UX component methods, which are called from the dialog.object placeholder that you put in your JavaScript when you're writing JavaScript in an action somewhere, like a click action or as part of an event that you've hooked. First one being underscore filter list, capital L, which filters a list. And then this other one, compute search from metadata and filter list, takes a different set of parameters. They're a little more complicated setup, but both of these will search a list because they're on the dialog object. There is opportunity here to perhaps dynamically choose which list you're going to send that search criteria to if you've used multiple lists to display information for some reason. So those are available to you. And then in terms of list methods themselves, there's a whole bunch. So this first one, search list, will run a server-side or a client-side search. And it's the one that you're going to see used in the search button in the list control. If you've generated a search interface from the search part and you look at the JavaScript that's in that button, this is what you're going to see. Two other options are filter list client side and set filter. These run on the client. They do not make any kind of server callback to pull data from the list. And then set filter on check columns, again, does not make any callback to filter the list. And it's going to filter that list data on the client based on what you have checked. If you have a checkbox column that you've added to your list. Clear search list will clear all of the above things, including searches that you've done using these methods. And these are list methods, so you have to get a pointer to the list object first before you can call them. But a few others that I wanted to call out here too are search mode on and search mode off. This is used with that detail view. If you've turned on QBF syntax for searching, you can use those methods to toggle between search and regular detail view, as well as the query by form clear controls is what you would call to clear the search on that. And then finally, clear all column action filters. If you're using the list column actions, we'll go back up and look at that real quick. If you're using this, that clear column actions filter will go through and clear all of the filters you've created on all of those things and get it back to an unfiltered state. Oh, I lied. There's an event section. Finally, client-side events to let you do even more manipulation on the search, any search, before search and after search complete. These are client-side events in the list control. If you have set up your list to do to store itself in local storage, or you have some restrictions on how much data is allowed to be downloaded into the list, so you've delayed load on your list until a search is active if you've put some criteria around that. These events may be triggered, which you can check and then tell the user, like, narrow your search results. You've asked for 1 million records. You're only allowed to have 100. And then that last one is mode change, which gets triggered every time the detail view goes in and out of QBF syntax mode, which is something you can also hook. So questions. I see a lot of questions here, Dave.
There are all kinds of questions.
There are a lot. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, searching is like all over the place. Something I didn't mention, I should throw this out there. If you're mixing your searches, like if you're mixing the advanced list search controller with an alphabet search and the query by form builder, you might run into, they might butt heads because these are kind of all designed as like a single interface. So just be aware of that if you try to turn on two things and all of a sudden things aren't quite working right. It's because under the hood, they're using these JavaScript functions, filter list or search list themselves.
Terrific.
So I'm going to escape out of that. We'll go to Alpha Anywhere now.
So first we'll get to questions in a second. Just a quick comments that someone pointed out and said, don't forget there's an incredibly powerful UX template called the Ad-Hoc query builder for SQL.
Let's look at that.
Which is a pretty cool one. So let's show that.
Yeah, so if I'm in Alpha Anywhere, this is Community Edition. And I just say that so that people running Community Edition know that you have access to this. If you look for Ad-Hoc SQL Query Builder, This is actually really cool. It does use saved searches, and it's got it has lists in it, but in this example, it isn't a list that's been populated with data that you're searching. You're actually populating the data into the list itself. So it uses some pretty cool capabilities in the UX component that let you dynamically create a list on the fly, including its columns, the data that goes into it based on something else. If we do let's see if this works here. Yeah, CSS icons. I need to specify the connection strings used in the component in the dropdown. There we go. Let's Google, let's search Ad-Hoc query builder, and I'll show you guys what I'm doing. There we go. I just need to know what the syntax is. So it's just the name. Okay. All right. I need to specify that. I don't have a repository table set up, so I won't be able to save anything. But I think if I do that, I'm going to check my connection strings real quick.
Make sure you have a Northwind.
I think I do. Alpha Dio.
I
have a demo Northwind. I've already forgotten.
Yeah, it's a different name.
Grab that one. And let's also get airports. So I'll come back here to my connection string drop down control. This is a demo Northwind and airports. And the reason I want to do two different ones is just to show you how that works. We'll do a live preview again. There are 5 upvotes from one person for this, so it sounds like they want everyone else here to go check it out. So that's the connection string. It's going to show me all the tables I can select from. So let's grab shippers. And then if I look at select, ignore these letters. I don't have the font icons installed, which is why you're seeing that. I can select, I can select all of these. No filter. Let's just execute that query. And there's my records. There's 3 queries or 3 results here. We can validate that here on the Web Project Control Panel if we go to SQL and Database Explorer, and we just take a look at the Northwind tables. What did we pick? Suppliers? Shippers.
Shippers, yeah.
All right, and if we show data in table, that's what's in the table. So you look at that. So yeah, it's got a bunch of stuff in it. You're encouraged to pick this apart if you see functionality here that you want to put in your app but don't want this interface. It's all the code is there for you. I was going to show you the other one. I didn't mean to close that. The airports. So let's look at airports. I'll give it a minute. U.S. airports table. Let's select the name and the county and the state, and let's filter this. Let's say we want a state contains the letter G, and then execute that, and these are all the results of the state that contains the letter G. So this isn't exactly in a list. This is just displaying the records as a text table. But there's your query. Yeah.
That is a cool UX and definitely worth examining and pulling apart to see how it works. So you can add that stuff to your own application. That's neat. Next up, someone pointed out that search highlighting doesn't seem to work. This is the highlighting portion, right? When you're working on a date range. I think it's just for character fields.
I think it's just for character fields as well. Yeah.
If you'd like that as a feature, though, You want to make an
Well,
argument for it? Go ahead
send in a
and
feature request.
And speaking of which, can you show people how to send in a feature request? We've shown bug reports before, but feature
Yeah.
request is something else you can do.
So if you want to send in a feature request, you click on help
Yep.
and you go to send an enhancement request, and
Uh-huh.
then you follow the instructions on the screen. Most of you are probably using a browser-based email account. Even if you're not, it might be worthwhile to just check that and click OK, because it's going to put all the information, including who you need to email and the format of the email, onto the clipboard for you to then paste into whatever client you're using.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the next thing was, can you do
Oops.
some of the searching and stuff you've shown has been happening server side,
Uh-huh.
but is it possible to do client side searching for
Yes.
one thing? Okay, cool. And then the other thing is, and again, do you have the ability to back to the highlighting thing? Can you do highlighting with client side searching, or is that just a server side sort of thing?
The highlighting happens client side, to my understanding.
Okay.
And I apologize. My computer crashed really hard, and
Oops.
I lost my project I was working on, apparently. So
Oh no.
um, let's. I'm just gonna rebuild it real quick here. Where
All
is
right.
the panel? Quick panels. No. Panel layout, tab, panel card. No, tab, panel navigator, tab, panel card, tab, panel card. Okie dokie. That's cool. There we go. Sometimes, I don't know why it does this, get a bit of a rendering glitch. So I'd originally set up the airports database, because the airports database has a lot of data in it. So I'm quickly building this up. Airports is available to you guys if you don't have it. Cannot claim it's accurate anymore for airports in the United States, because it's been around for a bit. But I'm going to set this up real quick. So now I'll have these fields: ID code, name, country, county, state, city. I'm going to list properties. I'm going to say it has a search part. And I'm just going to generate an individual's controls search part using the quick setup genie. I will create the controls I want, create for all unmapped controls. We'll add the buttons. We'll add a placeholder too, just to show the query that gets sent. We'll put it in panel card 2. And I'll just accept all those default configurations. Click OK. Oh, we need to go define a list layout as well. Let's just put everything in it for now. And then click OK. And then I'm going to rename this display name here to list search part. And we'll make this a tab band, tab UI, and we'll get real fancy and we will turn on the flared sub theme. There we go. And I have this currently configured to use alpha purple. It's one of our built-in styles that you can choose from. We'll do a working preview today, because it's ever so slightly faster when I'm doing a webinar. So here's our list. Here's that search part that got generated for us. We can search for a state. Let's look for states that contain the letter V. And there we go. So that was pretty quick to set up. You can customize this as needed. If you don't want these to be type-in, maybe you want it to be a drop-down. Maybe our search state, we want it to be a drop-down. We can convert that to a drop-down box here by changing the control type. And then the choices, we can dynamically pull from the database that data is based on by simply selecting our airports database and building our select statement off of the airports table, and the field to display is the state. And that will only select unique options. It will not duplicate them. So that's a really quick way to customize your search interface. So there we go. Now it's a drop down. All the text is white. There we go.
There we go.
Florida search. It takes a minute to load when I'm sharing my screen with you guys. So there we go. So you're starting with that basic search part really fast. You can switch over to keyword pretty easily if it had a detailed view, which you could set real fast here. Let's go to list properties, turn on that detail view. We'll go to the detail view. Need to create all new UX controls for unmapped fields. I'm going to put it in panel card 3 after was selected. We'll keep all these defaults. Click OK. That's fine. You can change the return type to primary key. We'll call this one detail view. We'll change the display name. And for those of you who don't know what display name is, this is what's shown in that tab. If you don't specify anything here, it shows the ID. And I haven't changed the search just yet to use the query by form, but we will take a look at that. So there's our detail view. Notice it's changing as I'm selecting something. If we come back here to design and we'll do a list, we'll change this search part to query by form, which will be disabled if you do not have a detail view. And then we'll click OK. And I think I need to add a few more buttons here. So let's go back here to our search part. Search part quick setup genie. Let's add the buttons for the search part action. Let's put it after panel card 3 here. And it's got search mode on, search mode off, query by form filter, so clear the form filter and clear the controls. We'll just put all those in there. There we go. We'll give this a moment to load. There we go. So if we go over to our detail view, here is the state. So query by form is on, or it's not on. If we click that, it'll turn it on and enable this button. So here, if we search for all states between M and N, search. Oh, it did.
It had a record.
Hold on. Clear controls, clear filter.
And delete that record.
I think I've misunderstood what this did. I'm gonna pop that open. All right. Search for matching records. So if we turn it on, I should be able to search for VA. And there we go.
All right.
So
now you can do your MN search or whatever, yeah.
Let's not do V to N. Let's do M to N, and then search again. Oh, it selected it, and it turned it off because I think I missed that part.
It switched off query by form and it went back into regular.
Yeah, because I clicked on it. Okay.
Third time's a charm. We can do it this time.
Third time's the charm.
Here we go.
I swear this works. I'm going to look to see if it is allow no selection. All right. One more time. Always save your work. This is the lesson I'm learning right now.
Exactly.
Always save your work. Yeah. Just in case your computer blue screens on you. All right. Turn it on.
Okay.
All
State
right.
field.
Let's look for a country here, or county. Sorry, Jasper. Everything in Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
Got to turn it back on. So it looks like
Yep.
it selected a row on that search, and that's what happened.
It
So
shuts it off.
it retained our option. I don't know why I did that down there. That's bad behavior. So let's look between like I and J. Doesn't like that. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. We'll solve that one for next time, all right?
We'll turn that off now. Let's
Difficult
just
feature,
leave
but
that.
still.
Forget we
All
did
right,
that.
awesome. So here's a
We'll
question.
just back
Are
here.
there Action JavaScript actions that you can use on a list? Let's say if you want to
Yes,
program a button to do a certain search or something like that.
for sure. Yeah, that was we did talk about that on the slides.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so there's if we search for a list on searching, there's filter records and a list control.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's list control and multiple actions. So filter records and a list control is this one that gives you a whole bunch of options. So you pick your list and then you can define the search fields you want to include, what they search. So we can set this up to search the code. Whether or not that's a range search. So if it was a date field, so it would ask for like what is the end date. So if I had a start date for search start, then maybe there's another one called search end. That's where you set this here. There's a search option, how that is computed. I think if we click here, you get a ton of information about this. So that's a bunch of numbers, but basically it's how do you treat this value? Should it exactly match? Should we just make sure it's contained? Do you support wildcard characters in here? Is it exactly equals to? Case insensitive searches here. We'll grab that one there. 12, and then some advanced options such as force case insensitive searches. County searches county. We'll leave this one on is contained. So that action, when triggered, will pull the values out of those controls and then do the search. You can also use a keyword search here, set up to do a keyword search. I don't know if I pointed out here, you can turn on QBF Syntax here as well. So if you want to have some fields that like do something very specific, like exactly match or contains, you can have that there. But you can also add options for turning on QBS Syntax. So maybe you want to provide, again, a date range search, and you don't want to provide two controls. Or maybe you just want to do a keyword search and provide that functionality. And then here too as well, you can set up your sort fields. There aren't any sort fields added here right now, but what you can do is you can pick the field that contains the sort, and then if you have a direction for that, you can set that up here, and then this ordering here determines how they're applied to your query. And then finally, show debugging information. If you ever want to know what's actually going against your data, you can turn this on. This does a server-side search, so it's going to go back to your data source. If you don't want that, you can't use this one. We'll just click OK for this and save that for now. Another action, the search to. I'll edit this action. List control actions, multiple actions. This is where everything else is. If you come in here and you want to do something with a list and you don't see it, go look inside list control actions, because list control actions has like 1,000 actions you can do with your list, including doing a server-side filter or a client-side filter. Here's where you want to set that up. So we'll pick this one here. And it's going to ask you for your list and what search field to use to search your list. And that's all you need to do with that to set it up. It's
So it's
pretty
a
basic.
simpler one, but this
Yeah,
one
it's
I
very
think the
basic.
exercise is it because it's JavaScript will work offline, disconnected once the data has been loaded onto your device.
Yes, it will work offline.
Yep.
Yes.
And won't burn your server, so you'll get better.
No, it won't burn your server. It'll
Yep.
keep working if your server is no longer available, assuming you still have the data. You know, same with sorting. There's a client-side sort here too as well.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Mhm.
I'd like to jump over to a couple of list control questions
Of
before
course.
we jump back into sort ones, just because this person asked it very early, and I want to make sure that their question is answered. So the first part of the question is, can you show us how to set up on-click events for fields within a list?
On-click events.
In other words, if I wanted to click on a field, or can you even do it? So let's say I had a field that had 3 names, first name, last name, state, or something like that, and they wanted to click on the state field and have something happen.
Gotcha. All right, let's set up a basic list for that. We can drive this one off of our favorite AA demo Northwind connection string.
Excellent.
And let's mix it up with the shippers table today, which is very small. It's only got 3 records in it.
Okay.
So they want to set up an on-click event when something gets clicked
Mhm.
in the list. Do you know if they are using a columnar list or?
Let's go with columnar list.
All right.
Unless they want to type in something else.
On a field within a list. Sorry, I just went to go read the question.
Mhm.
All right. So with the list,
Have we
there are
stumped
list
you?
events. No,
Okay.
I'm thinking through this question. So
Okay.
we've got some click events. So the list itself has events for when a row gets clicked. So you have your on click, but the other one that you have is on select. And these two do very different things. On click is triggered when it's clicked. On select is when the value is selected. So that's going to happen if you click on it or you select it with JavaScript or it gets selected through some other means. Depending on what you're trying to do. If you just want to capture clicking, on-click event is great. But if you are trying to do something when the value is selected, you want on select. And both of these events get past some parameters, including, I believe, what was selected. And I'm going to go.
What field was selected or what data was selected?
I think what gets clicked on, yeah. On select. So do they want to know something specific? Like a specific, do they want to know what field got clicked on?
Yeah, presumably, or presumably maybe they only want that thing to fire when you've clicked on, say, the state field or the
Right.
shipper field or something like that. Yeah. Or the phone number field.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit stumped on the columnar list because I know how you would do this in a free form.
Let's do it in free form then. And then
Yeah.
they need to do it the other way. We'll do it the other way.
All right. So columnar list, there's ways to get to it. Freeform is a little bit different. You dynamically create a layout with HTML, and placeholders. So we're just going to put these guys in here for now.
Mhm.
I'm just going to put on separate lines. It's not going to render with these extra lines because this is just white space in an HTML editor. But what you can do with these is you can actually use template items to add click handling to those controls. So if you wanted to do something like an on-click, you can do, let's do alert clicked row number. And there are ways to get even deeper into what you actually clicked.
Mhm.
We'll put that there. We come over to the list layout. We can insert that template item here. Insert item into template clicked. So this has a item clicked. If you insert item arguments, you can insert something like a field placeholder here that will pass the value of it to your event as an argument. So that's one way you can say like, oh, you clicked on, shipper ID X. We'll put that there. And that just inserts this text. You need to wrap that in something, so like a div, because A5 item is actually an HTML attribute. And let's put a div around these guys too. And I'm not reading that value that's being passed into it, but we can go to working preview here. And it's just going to be a column where each row is all these things. But you see if you click there, it says click to 0 because that's row 0. And if I click here, it's click 1. If I click on Speedy Express or the phone number, nothing happened because I didn't click on that specific location in the data. So if you're using I don't want to do that one. Freeform layout. That's the way you can insert click events. I will have to get back to you on click and on select to figure out which particular item you've clicked on it in those columnar lists. But we can look into that further if that's something that you are looking for information on.
There is wonderful. Yes, there's no on field click or anything like that for the. Just taking a look.
Well, there's a way to know. I
Okay.
don't remember off the top of my head how to do it.
Send that question in. That would be terrific. The next
Yes.
question is, can you do so back to a list and this time in columnar view? Can you do conditional styling on a particular column?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a number of ways to do that. There is you can do, I think it's in here. Maybe it's not. So we have conditional styling here
Okay.
on the client and on the server. And what this lets you do is you can add a condition here. So you can say something like if, well, I should have picked some data head states. Like if state is MA, make this blue, just that value within there. But this is a logical expression that you build using a syntax, which you can't get too quickly here, but it uses a JavaScript syntax in this case. So you'd be like double equals, or triple equals, MA, we'll assume it said state. If it equals that, then down here you would do your styling, or you would add a class name. Maybe you want to do edit error. So you want to apply, I didn't do the thing. So edit error, select plus. Okay. So it'll apply that class name if this matches. If you do that, you want to make sure you have another condition. I think it's not equal. To set it back to simple style to clear that out. In case that's something that you edit and it changes and you want that to update it, you do need to do that here. Because that gets applied and it doesn't It doesn't know what to switch it back to if you have added the class name. So that's what you can do with these.
Fantastic. Now
Yeah.
back to that first question about clicking on a particular field and knowing where it is. There is a JavaScript function.
Mm-hmm.
One of our audience
Of
members
course.
has found it in your wonderful documentation system and actually pasted a link to it. So I'm going to put that right here in the.
Oh, there we go.
I'm going to do a send to all here.
Thank you for
Yes.
finding
So,
the answer. I've probably documented this.
that's how it works. Well, see, this
It's
is
on field click.
It's a group effort, and I want to say thank you.
There it is, on field click. All right, so that's the one you want to use if you want to use a picture. Click on
And
a
one of the
specific
things
field,
you get
and
back
it's
is
got a bunch of
the
stuff in it.
field
It's
name.
got the row number that was clicked. It's got the name of the field that was clicked, the field's value, and a data object that contains all the data for the row that was clicked. So that's what you need. Thank you for finding that. I knew there was a way to do this. I just couldn't remember. It's been a while. Gold star. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. So now you learned the right way and the wrong way. So there you go.
Yeah,
Two different ways.
so this is on field click. If you want to add in custom click events, you're encouraged
No, you're
to
still
also use
working
the
with that
A5
with the
items.
A5
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the A5 item thing is really powerful because it's not just click, but it's it's other things. And if you're building a freeform layout, it lets you put stuff in there that isn't a field. So that's something to keep in mind.
Fantastic.
Are there any more?
Let's see. There was another
searching?
short question. Let me see if I can find it.
Somebody asked about search highlighting.
We went over search highlighting actually. The next one, the search highlighting is, can you do that client side?
You can. So the way search highlighting works is there's actually just this highlight method that we call. I'll put it in the chat. This is going to highlight more probably than you want to highlight.
Oh, and there's an example and all that. Great.
It's got some examples in it. Highlight. Grids also support search highlighting if you're a fan of the grid component. If you are building new applications and you've never used the grid, I do encourage people to stick with the list, just because it's going to be touch friendly.
Component. Yeah.
In the UX component, yeah, stick with the UX. It supports touch interfaces. Grid does not. It just supports your basic mouse and keyboard interactions.
All right. So now here is actually, this was a suggestion for a question, not a question itself, but it's a great one. Okay, let's say you are doing a search. No, let's say you've got a list control and it's going against a bajillion records, a ton of records. And when you open that up, it's going to take forever for that thing to load. What are two things that you could do, or one or two things that you could do to make that easier?
So there's a bunch of things you can do. If you're providing a search interface, you could explicitly require that people search for something before you display any data, which you could come into the search part here and just turn that on.
And so if you do that, the list will be blank until you perform that search. Is that right?
It will be blank until a search is done. So that's one way to do it. The other option that you can do if you've got a ton of data and offline is not something that you need, you can paginate it. Pagination just restricts the number of results.
So you can bring back the first 50 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you can pick down 50. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. It shows this pagination fetch more, meaning you click a fetch more button and it pulls down more data. But you could also just do your basic, record navigation buttons where you go to the next page or the previous page and they're numbered across the bottom.
So is the fetch more kind of like the endless scrolling, like you keep pulling down on the list to see more? Or is that
sort of. Fetch more requires a bit more interaction. The one you just mentioned is auto fetch more. So it tries to automatically get more data if it detects that the person's reached the bottom of the results.
Nice.
The navigation buttons, you can set up your navigation bar here. Yeah, sure, go with that. And just to show you that this list only has 3 records in it, so it's not going to be particularly exciting, but
okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's going to get all the data.
You could paginate it to 1, I suppose.
I could. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you just want to use your list as a
Yeah.
fancy, like, a
Right
resume
there, you can
display
see
and go
what
through
came
them one at a
from.
time. But here's your
It's
buttons, right?
clearly paginating.
One
Yeah.
of one. Yeah. So
Awesome.
that's your paginated data. Yeah. Now
Fantastic.
pagination.
Well,
Yep.
that covers that. Thanks very much. And we are just at the end of time. So, Sarah, thanks very much for presenting.
You're welcome.
Thanks all of you for asking questions, and actually also today for providing some answers. Appreciate that. If you do have
Thank
more
you.
questions, go ahead and send them to guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. Until then, we hope to see you at our next Alpha demo and Q&A webcast. Okay, take care and stay well. Bye-bye.